Think of the passion, God love everlasting, keep the Lord a land and think of the passion, God love everlasting, keep the Lord a land and book in case you're asking. Moving forward to the learning and it's free, cause I know that God know the combo go with Sister E. Love talk Sister E, God work Sister E, charity Sister E, let's talk with Sister E. All different type of information every week, let me speak. If you subscribe, we going deep. Love talk Sister E, God's work Sister E, charity Sister E, let's talk with Sister E.
Hello, my beautiful people. Y'all don't realize I'm and getting this background in order. I decided to show my face today. People be saying I don't show my face no more. So I said, let me show my face to let them know I'm still Sister E. I have not changed. I'm still the same person. So y'all, I got some guests that I'm getting ready to bring on. Let me get my little bracelet. I have some guests I'm getting ready to bring on. So these guests, if you remember them, y'all remember where I've told y'all numerous times me coming. Well, I guess the only person gonna be here is Gardis because everybody else kind of left. But I'm looking to do more work with my old crew back in the day with Sunday Seminary. And I'm not going to call them that. We just finna start having some real live conversations. Reason I want to have these conversations because it's a lot going on right now. So with that being said, let me go ahead and bring my friend up. Hold on. What's going on, Gardis?
Hey, Sister E, what's going on?
Not much. How you doing?
I'm here.
Yeah. So, what do y'all? I mean, let's go and get to it. So, everybody's biggest conversation piece, and I'm gonna play this. Let me play this video first, and then we can get started talking. Because everybody know who you are. You're not brand new to the channel. Everybody know who Father G is. So I'm gonna play this video real quick, and it's coming from CNN. And let me do my little disclaimer so I won't get hit with any type of any type of hits real quick. Let me do fair use. So copyright disclaimer under section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, new reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by a copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Fair use. So I'm going to play this video real quick and then we can get right into it, Gardis. Okay. I'm going to share this and then we can get started. So y'all, this is coming from CNN. This is for education research education and research purposes only. So Monday, markets break open and tariff prompt to buy before price hike. So what they're trying to do is keep from the market crashing, and we'll go into it once I play this video. So let me play this really quick.
Only hours before the markets open in the U.S., already tonight, early signs Wall Street will start the week in the red. The start of pre-market trading suggesting last week's stock slide may still be in the early innings. A baseline 10% tariff kicked in yesterday and will rise even further for dozens of countries under President Trump's so-called reciprocal tariffs set to take effect Wednesday.
We are finally putting America first.
President Trump golfing this weekend in Florida has been mostly quiet since Wednesday's announcement, but Americans are closely watching their portfolios and price tags to gauge the impact of the tariffs on their wallets.
There doesn't have to be a recession. Who knows how the market is going to react in a day, in a week.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent on Meet the Press with Kristen Walker.
What is your message to Americans who want to retire right now and who've just seen their lifetime savings drop significantly?
I think that's a false narrative. Americans who want to retire right now. The Americans who have put away for years in their savings account, I think they don't look at the day-to-day fluctuations of what's happening.
Last week's spill on Wall Street erased nearly $6 trillion from the market. Trump advisor Elon Musk now calling on the president to undo some tariffs.
I hope it is agreed that both Europe and the United States should move, ideally, in my view, to a zero tariff situation.
As countries like China and Canada promise retaliation, some in the administration say the tariffs are here to stay.
There's no postponing. They are definitely going to stay in place for days and weeks.
Brian Chung is joining us now. And Brian, if, as you heard there, those tariffs are expected to stay in place for weeks, what does that mean for possible negotiations to maybe bring them down?
Well, Hallie, it's unclear. The Treasury Secretary told NBC more than 50 countries have reached out to the administration about lowering their tariffs, but declined to say the U.S. was open for negotiation. Ultimately, the secretary said it's a decision for President Trump, and we may find out when the president holds a news conference tomorrow. Hallie.
This is your cartridge.
Sinks, faucets, and shower heads. Home basics that could soon be a lot more expensive.
Has it been busy?
The ripple effects of President Donald Trump's sweeping tariffs concerning for shoppers like Brett Myers, who is remodeling his Los Angeles home.
It's a house, it's a car, it's all sorts of worries.
Russ Diamond, president of home store Snyder Diamond, says some of his vendors are already raising their prices.
I got a notice last night from one of our vendors in the UK apologizing for the short notice, but their price is going up Monday. We would have to most likely pass that on to our consumer.
The fear of price increases also causing an uptick in customers, many of their purchases coming from overseas.
Even though they're recognizable names of U.S. companies, a lot of times they're made in Mexico.
This manufacturer from the UK, and this one here is from France. This Canadian one saying they're already planning a 15% price increase. And it's not just appliances. The cost of toys, phones, cars, all expected to spike.
Especially with a growing family, it's just really tough to kind of predict how to allocate your money when you're just trying to save all of it.
But some say the sacrifice is worth it.
I'm worried that things are going up, and I know my investments have tanked because of the retaliation. But I think Donald Trump is doing the right thing. We have to have manufacturing jobs in our country.
Everyone hoping the economic pain is temporary. Camila Bernal, NBC News, Los Angeles.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about break.
So let's not waste our time. What are your thoughts on this? This looks like this is getting ready to be a mess. Because you said something just before we went live, Garda. She said, if the market tanks tomorrow or crashes tomorrow, a recession is coming. So I'm gonna let you elaborate on it, and I'm gonna be quiet. What are your thoughts? What is your insight on this week? Because this week is going to be an interesting week. I'll say that much.
No, actually, in our conversation before you hit live, you mentioned that it probably might be a depression, which possibly could be it. I think the market will probably have to crash a couple more days for it to be a depression. Many people are banking that maybe Trump might make some type of deal and either lower the tariffs, but even if he does do that, that's not going to take away the price increases that we're about to see. Because if you look at our economy, almost everything we have or everything or things that we have, in use, as far as appliances, as far as food, over half of it is imported. And even if even if something is made in America, there are certain parts of it that is still imported. Say for instance, American made cars. There are parts in GM and Ford cars that is imported, Taiwan and Vietnam and all these places that Trump has just, put tariffs on. And, it's this tariff thing is getting to be a hot mess, because in one of his speeches, and he might have been just flying off the hinges with this. He was talking about how tariffs is more beautiful than love, and tariffs
Oh
is.
yeah.
I was like, wow. But this is what he promised in his campaign. Now he kept some promises of doing the tariffs, other promises of keeping prices low. He ain't gonna do that. Now he and his people kind of backtrack, saying, well, we have to just endure the pain, because he's pushing this narrative out that America is getting raped or robbed, by the rest of the world, when in fact it's probably the reverse. Americans been raping and robbing the rest of the world,
Correct.
including its allies. And you're
Yep.
seeing now that he's even putting tariffs on his most important allies and
Yes.
trade partners. So this, he's about to throw not just the United States, but possibly the most of the world into a depression.
Yeah.
I'm thinking the only country that could probably withstand it the best is possibly China. A country he actually wants to go to war with. Because
Yep.
right now he's starting this economic war with China right now.
Yep.
Pretty soon, if he notices that this is not going to work, he'll probably try to use more force. And I don't know. Hopefully many of his military advisors from his first administration is probably there, because I don't know if you ever read John Bolton's book about his time in the Trump administration. And there were many people in his administration, because apparently he said he wanted to actually have a military war against China, and many of his military advisors were like, no, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. So
Yeah. Yeah. The interesting part is, and I have a video I just came across. They said it's almost a declaration of war between the US and China right now, with this whole tariff thing, because China is pretty much not backing down on creating their own kind of taxation when it comes to goods. And it's going to be an ongoing trade war. And I see this being more of a trade war, more so than anything, which is going to ultimately lead to a war. Now, what people don't realize is tomorrow is I think tomorrow is a significant day, because I think the markets have been tanking, being honestly quiet as it's kept for the past month. We've seen a decline. And I think the dip we've just recently seen in the past couple of days. But if you even look at what's been going on for the past couple of months, it's been like a slow decline. But it really dipped right at the time of the conversations of the tariffs. And we were already in a financial situation anyway, prior to him coming in. So it's like everything has gotten worse, and it's only going to get worse from here. But today, I think you said yesterday, not yesterday, but you said today, but right before we went online, if the market crashes tomorrow, that's it. What are your thoughts? What do you mean by that? Or kind of elaborate on that.
Well, I mean, we're talking about day number 4 of the
Yeah.
markets just keeping going down. And to me, we're at that point, we're at a recession.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of jobs lost. Many people's stocks have already taken 70% hits. And this is one of those types of recessions. If nothing is done, and we're going to be feeling the pain of this for a while. And this is going to be different from, say, in the last couple of years, we've seen the markets, kind of crash. We had the COVID pandemic where basically production stopped. But we all knew that, once we got past that pandemic, production was going to open up again. We saw it in 2008 with the marketing bubble, but we had to see the market kind of reset itself, and it took the country about maybe a couple of years to recover from that. But this is a little different because of the fact that he's the Trump administration is basically crashing the economy through policy, and especially foreign policy.
Yep.
When you discuss foreign policy, the problem is that you're dealing with other economies, and you're dealing with other economies because of the fact that our economy depends so much on imports. Decades ago, we gave away a lot of our industry to places like China and Vietnam for the sake of cheap labor. So many executives can garner more money, get big bonuses, and at the same time, we still get our products. So now Trump, who claims that he's doing this to bring back industry, is doing it through tariffs. And I'm not an economist, but I've been listening to economists for like the last week about this. And you cannot bring back industry through tariffs. Tariffs, the two things about tariffs that I've learned is tariffs basically try to equalize unbalanced trading between two countries. And the thing about it is that the United States has trade deficits with almost every country.
Yeah.
So when you think about, okay, so how do you balance, the trade deficit? The only way you balance the trade deficit is export more. And tariffs is not going to do that. All tariffs is going to do is just put more money in the coffers of the government, which to me, one of the things that I feel like Trump is doing in this case is he's getting ready to redo his tax cuts again. Because if you remember, his original tax cuts that he signed in 2017 is expiring this year. So he wants to do this again, but at the same time, he's trying to accumulate some capital to do these tax cuts again and put more money in the American oligarchs' pockets. So this to me is just basically a big windfall for his billionaire friends. And another thing about the tariffs is it's supposed to protect domestic industry. The problem is that we don't have much domestic industry.
We really don't. We took that out back in the 80s.
Yeah. And so the only way industry gets to come back, or the only way you actually build industry, is through government policy that is funded by the government, because they have to build the infrastructure.
Yep.
And the only way you could build the infrastructure is through government policy, the government funding it, and also too through education, because you got to educate the engineers, you got to educate the labor force for this industry. And if I'm a guessing man, Trump is basically trying to put pressure on the private sector to bring industry. But why would the private sector bring back industry when it's basically helping them financially to have these factories in these other countries? Why would they do that?
Right. I see what you're saying. So ultimately, they're not going to give up. Making sure I'm clear. Ultimately, what you're saying is we have outsourced so much of our industry outside of the U.S. We put ourselves in a position that the same industry that has outsourced is now going to almost have to. It's going to cost them extra to import those goods into the U.S. to ultimately be able to purchase things like iPhones and all of those different items, which is ultimately going to impact us because we no longer own the goods itself, far as having the goods internally within the U.S. to be able to manage it. We have to reach out to our partners outside of the U.S. to be able to get the things we need. And because of that, we're going to have to pay more, because as we implement tariffs, they're going to implement their own tariffs.
Exactly. And also understand this. The tariffs are not being paid by the country. They're being paid by the exporters.
Mm-hmm.
So for instance, if you got Nike in China, right? And you want to buy your Nike shoes. Okay, shoes, let's just say fundamentally $100. Well, United States is going to charge Nike, not China, but because of the fact that they're in China, they're going to get that tariff rate. So now Nike is being taxed the 38% to send their shoes over here so somebody could buy it for $100. Well, obviously the consumer might think, well, I should still pay $100. Well, not really, because now 38% tax on $100 was that $38 more dollars. They're going to pass the cost on to the consumer.
Yep.
So now all your stuff. So, and the thing is that Nike is an American company.
Yeah.
Nike is an American company, and we have a lot of American companies that are in China. So a lot of these companies are getting hit they're getting hit hard with these tariffs. So this basically is going to bring down the economy big time because of the fact that prices are going to go up. More people are losing jobs. Wages are stagnant. And right now, the working class of American people are in a quandary because now with everything going up and nobody's wages is going up along with the same rate, you get a recession.
Yep. Yeah. And hey, Jeff, what's going on? I know you got a lot to say. I was hoping some of the crew can come in here. I waited last minute to do this live because I was like, I've been watching the news. The reason why I said I wanted to do this, been watching the news all day today, off and on. And the biggest conversation that's going on right now is tariffs. And Monday, at the close of Monday, what will this country look like? And people don't understand why tomorrow is so important, because it's the open of the New York Stock Exchange, stock market, Wall Street, which is right up the street from me. And then at the close of it, will we see another tank? See, because I think that if it doesn't tank like it did Friday, because Friday I showed something and the dip was like so deep to the point that I was like, what the heck? And I think they lost 6%. Was it like a 6% decline? That's bad. If they see another dip on Monday, it's not going to be a pretty day with not just within the US, but from a global perspective. So that's why I said, man, let's talk about this today, because I was going to actually wait till Monday to talk about it. I said, let's talk about it today and watch it so people can be aware to watch it tomorrow, because I'm actually working from home and I'm have the news going. I'm watching news. I'm have CNN, MSNBC, everything going tomorrow. And I'm going to watch it tomorrow to see how it looks. And if we see a major dip by the close of the stock exchange on tomorrow at 5, I think it's 5 o'clock, I'm going online at 7 o'clock. So I want to kind of talk about it now. So Jeff, what are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts is pretty much what in line with what Gardis has been saying is how do you recover from some of the policies that our president that's recently put in place. There's no recovery if he stick to it, of course. And his method of madness, I could per se, is not very popular. But I see what he's trying to do. Of course, he's trying to bring back product to the U.S. So we can be self-sustaining. But how do you do that after 40 plus years of constant, sending corporations out of the country, and only the people that are benefiting mostly from, as far as profiting, is the industries that are owned by these million and billionaires. They're benefiting. It's not gonna hurt them much. In my take, we're gonna eat up all of that extra cost on both sides of the fence, from our government and also from the other countries that basically every country that has to deal with this, it's going to be out of our pocket. And I don't know how we're going to be able to adjust to that, but it's going to be. And the president said himself, we're just going to have to endure. I don't know how that's going to be feasible, and he continue to have what he's been doing lately, and we see the prices going up already, without everything is being actually implemented yet. Monday, like you said, tomorrow is going to tell going to give you a real visual of what's going to take place, but it's only the tip of the iceberg, because the war, is with that exchange of taxes being rendered to us and to them, but we're the ones that's going to have the issue itself. Is how are we going to pull out of our pockets to deal with the circumstances that they're having amongst each other. And I mean, that's my take on it, just as an overall look at what's going on. I'm not real big in politics. It's just, I look at countries, not just in the United States, but I look at a couple of countries like when you look at Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. When they cut their ties, they had a plan in place to be self-sustainable, and this is what you're starting to see if you tune into them from time to time. You see almost every week, almost every month, they're making changes towards them being more self-sustainable. They're not reaching out to countries to purchase from, but more so to learn from, so they can be a stronger nation. I believe the United States has an image of being a strong nation or the strongest nation, but we're not the strongest nation anymore. And that image, we have to face some reality. In order for us to be a strong nation, not so much as the strong nation that we once were, but to continue to be a strong nation, we're going to have to be willing to learn from other countries in order to be that strong country or self-sustaining country that we once were. And we know from history how these things developed. How the United States end up being a very strong country? We know that. And how they was able to sustain it is by having corporations here once free labor left.
Yep.
And once the corporations left the country, of course, you're going to lose the strength of the country, because now everybody's buying out. We can't purchase anything other than maybe a glass of water, but even the water the glass comes from Taiwan. So how do we purchase anything at all without it coming from somewhere else?
Correct. The introduction of the concept of Reaganomics, I think that's when I saw it in the 80s. I talked about it yesterday. In the 80s, when a lot of the major distribution and factories closed down and they start shipping the work overseas. And they've been doing that since and it started like in the 1980s, early 80s. And you saw a lot of people get laid off. And mostly it was a lot of our people that got impacted by that. You had Gary, Indiana with the steel mills. You had Tennessee, Memphis with a lot of the factories and distribution hubs, because that's the distribution center. So you had all these different areas that got hit because they shut down all of the manufacturing companies that were within this country that was maintaining people. And now you shipped all this stuff off, where at one time the goods were being made here and sold here, that we were not dependent upon any other country doing any work. And when you started doing offshoring items and other distributions, because you, instead of paying somebody $20 an hour plus insurance, you can pay them $2 an hour, if that much, and you can get away and make more money. And we're in a situation right now that, like you said, Gardis, these companies are going to feel it more so than the countries itself. Because now I think the countries are going to feel it, because guess what? If we start cutting those relationships with them, or if these companies start cutting the relationships because it's not feasible for them, well, where are these countries going to be? Because guess what? The work is going to be, and do y'all, and I'm not going to go into this. Do y'all foresee by any chance of them trying to get this, get the work and the labor back here? Because that's the only thing that'll save them. But I think it's too late.
Well, there has to be a viable a plan to do this because of the fact that this country, I would say, over the last 5 decades, gave it away, in particular to China. If history tells us, Richard Nixon in 1972 took a trip to China, and he basically made a deal with Mao Zedong to basically give him more industry and within his country, for in exchange for, and this all connects to politics because this was the start of the Sino-Soviet split, where they were trying to get China to go against the Soviet Union, and in that process, because China at that point and the Soviet Union were split on Vietnam at the time, which a war that America lost. They were able to infuse their industry with American companies going over there because initially the Chinese were staunch communists. They didn't trade with anybody except other communist countries, which wasn't many at that time. So now they have this capitalistic deal with the United States to bring those industries over into the mainland China for cheap labor. But and initially when that deal was signed, it was a lopsided deal because before that time, China was actually on the verge of bankruptcy. But what this country did not calculate was that the Chinese people, when they started getting, this capital and started getting these investments from these American companies, they didn't just take the money and basically, spend it all mindlessly. They reinvested in their country. They reinvested in their nation. So what do? They started reinvesting in infrastructure. They started reinvesting in education. They started reinvesting in a lot of things that we don't invest in anymore. And over the process of 5 decades, I read somewhere China was able to lift 850 million of their people out of poverty because they reinvested in their people. And this is why they was able to build the nation that they have right now. So part of why China is what it is our fault because we gave them the industry and they took it and ran with it. So now you got this superpower who, like I said, we infused their economy with our industry because a lot of the American oligarchs wanted to save money on labor.
Yep. And you know what? That's the same thing with India. India falls in the same line now because India now has, I don't see them much in the manufacturing realm more so than in the tech realm, where you can get somebody on the help desk or on customer service, a corporation who would pay somebody $15, $20 an hour can charge them. Put it like this. My India counterpart's salary is the complete flip side of mine. And when I found out I said, what? And they said, well, the cost is like cheap. So a person who works on a help desk in India will probably make a couple of dollars an hour. Whereas here, $30, $40 an hour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And India is trying to, they're trying to be like you said, they're trying to be a major tech country as well. They're trying to get into the chip developing industry, but the problem is that India has been having issues with their infrastructure. Because if you understand, like with chip manufacturing is basically it's basically the global weapon of power. You're like, if you can manufacture chips, then you got power. So if you look at the world and you see there's only a few places, maybe about 3 places in this world that can manufacture chips on a mass scale. You got Taiwan. Taiwan basically is a very important island to China, but also the United States, because of the fact that a lot of the world's chips come from that place. And then you got, I think it's somewhere in the Netherlands where they mass produce chips. But these places, like I said, they're very important things, and that industry is so, it's so rare, because you got to have the engineers that have the working knowledge of what a chip is. Because I mean, like you and me, we're in IT, we know how complex chips are. Like,
correct,
they got trillions and trillions of transistors on this one little chip that's like maybe smaller than what I'm seeing, what I'm putting now. And all of these chips are in your phones. They're in your, whatever small devices you have, your iPads. And the thing is that those types of devices are also powering high-tech weapons as well. So, the chip manufacturing is important. There's a book that I will recommend you read called Chip Wars. It came out 2 years ago. And it basically is like the history of chip manufacturing within like the United States and around the world, and how China became a global superpower because of the fact that if you remember, I think it was in Trump's first term, he not only did he put tariffs or try to start that trade war with China, but he also banned chips coming from China. And no, actually what happened was he banned Taiwan from selling chips to China. No, wait a minute, hold up. Something about he was able to stop China from getting chips. But what ended up happening was China ended up developing their own chips, and they're actually this close in opening up a manufacturing plant where they can actually mass produce chips on the level that Taiwan is having. So if they do that,
that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. I wanted to play something because everybody's trying to find a happy place, because they calling it. I saw something that's called it Black Monday. Have you heard of it?
Oh yeah, the happened in 87.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a quick little clip. And it came up, and this came out 7 hours ago. CNBC host warns of Black Monday market crash over Trump's tariffs. Woo! Records to collapse like in 18. Reveling. Gosh. Let me play it.
The president doesn't try to reach out and reward these countries and companies that play by the rules in the 1987 scenario, the one where we went down 3 days and then down 22% on Monday, has the most cogency. We will not have to wait out too long, will we? We'll know by Monday. Fortunately, we had an excellent set of employment numbers today. At least it makes it less likely a crash will necessarily lead to a recession. But if President Trump stays intransigent and does nothing to ameliorate the damage that I saw these last 2 days, I'm not going to be constructive here. I will contain my anger, but only because I lived through 87, and in the end, I came out okay. I was in cash for the crash. I know what this feels like.
So this is another one that I came across. Share this tab. So now the thing is, and let's talk about Black Monday of 1987. Most people don't talk about it. Let me real quick.
CBC's own Jim Cramer to map out a game plan for tomorrow's trading day. Is the voice of the American investor. Jim, we appreciate you taking some time on us on a Sunday night. This is ugly.
Oh, true, Brian. It's definitely ugly, but you have to remember it's been ugly six times in the last 40 years. I mean, big bear markets. And every time you had to either buy pretty much very quickly if you wanted to get a good price, except for in 2007, 2009, where it took 6 years to get back. So we're just trying to figure out exactly which of those two baskets we have. And I'd say it's more the former. I'm not going to panic. I'm not going to say, get out now. I think that you got to stay the course here.
Yeah, and you were writing to your Investing Club newsletters, and I'm gonna read Jim Cramer to Jim Cramer. You said you think it's reasonable we could see an 18 multiple on $220 in earnings, which takes us down to about 4,000, but there is a worst case possible scenario even on top of that. What are some of the various possible scenarios, Jim, that you see?
Sure. Well, I think the biggest problem we have is that if you wanted to try to bottom fish tomorrow, and I don't advise that, you have to worry that Europe is going to come after us. And I figure Europe comes after us between 3 and 7 days later. That would be the moment where I think if you wanted to do some buying, you wanted to be fine. Look, if you need the money in the next year, you do want to do some selling. If you're margined, geez, I mean, I don't know if you should bother because I'm going to send you an invitation to your funeral. But I do believe that what's going to happen is we'll settle in. Look, the president wants these tariffs. This is not a negotiation. A lot of this is by Peter Navarro and influencing the president. Peter wants the world trade imbalance with China corrected. And all the countries that are really heavily tariffed that don't look like they make any sense tend to be backdoors of China sending us things. So we have to deal with that. I don't think that anything's going to be unscathed. If you wanted to know what should be unscathed, it would be the American utilities. No tariff, nothing. They're a terrific place because interest rates are going down. We have interest rates going.
So I'm going to stop right here. Does it seem like he's really giving us answers or he's talking in circles right now?
I mean, he seems like he's talking in circles. But like I said, I'm not an economic expert. However, I do look at the side that is connected with the politics, because we all have to understand that economics ties into politics.
Yes.
And, you know, a lot of what I've read about the 87 stock market crash had to deal with trade deficits that the United States was having with a lot of European nations and also with Japan. Now, if you remember back in those days, Japan was actually a rising economy. And there were actually fears that Japan, back then, what China is now, everybody had projected that was going to be what Japan was going to be, that rising Asian market. And also during that time, the dollar actually started to, lose its value. So when the market crashed, I think they signed something called the Laval Accords. And I think it kind of halted, the economy from going into a depression. So they signed this agreement in Paris, and I believe it was hold on, let me look it up. But I believe it was basically there to kind of quell the economy from going into depression, because we could have went into a depression back in the late 80s after that crash. So it was an international agreement, the Laval Accords, LOUVRE.
Yep.
And and it was
I think the only difference is Reagan is a little bit more of a politician and was more about diplomacy, whereas Trump is not. Trump doesn't care. And I think because he's built so many bad relationships that I don't foresee them coming together, as far as especially with the European nations coming together and trying to come together and build a plan to ensure that they don't fall into that pit hole. Who is RC? I don't know who you are, but you got a wrench, and I'm scared. I don't remember who you are. Ooh, that's a little scary. You got a wrench, and I don't know who you are. You just said RC. Hey, where do I know you from? That's a little scary. I just realized, wait a minute, you have a wrench, and I don't even know who you are. Oh, that's Ramon. Ramon, you scared me, Ramon. Oh, I got to stop talking crazy to you on Clubhouse. You got a wrench. Act right. But I think Trump is not one of a diplomat. I mean, and I think that's going to be our biggest downfall.
He's definitely not a diplomat. I mean, he's already. I think the other day I heard him say something about I guess they're in negotiations with Vietnam with a trade deal, and Vietnamese government is like, we didn't say nothing about no trade deal.
Man, it's another thing that I ran across because, like I said, tomorrow morning is going. I think all eyes are going to be on the market. Everybody's going to be watching the market on tomorrow. If you're not watching the market on tomorrow, you don't know what's going on.
You know, that's and people have to understand that's where the economy, that's the core of the issue of our economy, because of the fact that our economy is based off of speculation now. You know, if you look at what happened in the early 20th century when this country did have a strong economy, what was it? It was industry. We were making a lot of things in this country. And the thing was, and going back to history again, many economists from the Great Depression felt that one of the trade deficits that the United States had was with food, because they were still importing more food than they were exporting or making here. And if memory serves me, one of the modifiers of the Great Depression that actually made it worse was there was a tariff act that was passed by Hoover called the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, and it was supposed to kind of reset the trade, the trade deficit with the foods, because during that time a lot of this country was it was in agribusiness, it was in agriculture. And so this act basically raised tariffs of over 20,000 imports. And many economists during that time was trying to get Hoover not to sign this bill. And it was, and not only just economists, but big businessmen like Rockefeller and J.P. Morgan, Ford, Henry Ford. They were pleading with him not to sign that act. He signed it, and the Depression just went worse. And it wasn't until Eisenhower, who won the election in 1932, had repealed the act, and during that time, that's when the Depression started to kind of make a turn. But then what happens 7 years later? We get into World War II.
Yep. Now that's the biggest thing, because if we go into a recession, they continually keep moving forward with these trade wars. These trade wars are going to ultimately cause, which we're already the attention amongst these countries, which could lead to another war. Because right now, some of these disagreements amongst these countries is the money and trade. And it's going to, if the U.S. goes into a recession, it gets worse, and we continually proceed with these tariffs, it's going to be ugly from an economic standpoint, and also from a wartime standpoint. It's going to go downhill.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of countries are preparing for this. I see, there's definitely a lot of tension going on. I know you were yesterday, you were keeping your eye on the protests from yesterday. Which I saw there's a lot of white people that was in there in those protests. Didn't see a lot of us in there, but I saw a lot of white people going out and protesting. So maybe the people who voted for him might have voters remorse. I don't know. Many of the Republicans who we kind of know don't like all this and don't like Trump, they continue to stay silent, because obviously they will be voted out of office, because apparently Trump still has a hold on the Republican Party.
Yeah.
We don't see enough resistance within our government to stand up against him because of the fact that everybody is just basically going along for the ride. They're just basically trying to just ride the coattails of this, because it doesn't matter if Trump is about to crash the economy.
Yep.
So
yep. Thank you so much. Burgundy Blue commentary for the $20 super chat. This says, thank you for the great content. I had no idea. I will be watching tomorrow. Gotta watch tomorrow. So with this, look at this. So I'm gonna play this real quick.
Founder and former Trump economic advisor, and Robert Wolf, former economic advisor to President Obama and a Fox News contributor. Great to have both of you with us today. So your headline take on where we are, given the things that we just laid out. Steve, you start.
Well, I think this new tariff by China is almost like an act of declaration of war against the United States. And what I'd like to see Trump do, and I know they're thinking of different strategies about how to move forward, is really aim these tariffs at the villain of the world, which is China. And maybe it might be time for pausing some of the tariffs against Europe and Canada. And look, I think Trump has a case that these countries do have a lot higher tariffs than we do, and it is not a level playing field. But right now, it looks like the whole world has to really go after China right now. And I'd like to see maybe a temporary pause on the tariffs on the rest of the world and really getting tough with China. China, I was just listening to the interview you guys did with Stephen Miller, and Stephen Miller's right. China can't survive. Their economy can't survive if they can't trade with the United States. So maybe it's time to put pressure on them.
It's interesting, Robert. Yesterday, there was a lot of talk about the first country that steps up and says, okay, pick up the phone, let's talk, we will negotiate with you, is going to be the winner in this. And the ones who come around towards the end are likely to be the losers. And today, this is what President Trump said about his call with officials from Vietnam. I just had a very productive call with To Lam, General Secretary of the Communist Party of Vietnam, who told me that Vietnam wants to cut their tariffs down to zero if they're able to make an agreement with us. I thanked him. I look forward to a meeting in the near future. Robert, your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts is this big, beautiful economy that actually was rolling pretty good with jobs and inflation coming down feels more like the Game of Thrones Red Wedding. I mean, it is not going well. This is being executed poorly. His economic advisors are being intellectually dishonest. Trade wars are bad. Tariffs are a tax. Consumer prices are not going down. We're 70% a consumer-driven country. So building a moat around the United States with protectionist and isolationist economic policies are not positive. And this isn't me saying it. This is J.P. Morgan, 60% chance of a recession. Heritage Foundation is for free trade and thinks tariffs are poor. I think Steve and I have always been for targeted tariffs. Go after the Eurozone on auto. Go after China on steel and intellectual property. But across the board is just coming back to haunt us. Yeah. And the markets are efficient. I disagree with Secretary of State Rubio. It's not just the businesses are getting reset. They're going to actually look at what happened at Whirlpool in Iowa. They cut over 500 jobs.
I pause right here. What I'm getting is they have a plan. And I think this is the last ditch effort plan. It's going to be implemented on tomorrow and the rest of this week. If that plan does not work, you're going to see this calm, collected type disposition that they have. I got a feeling we're going to see that shift tomorrow. If the markets don't work tomorrow, if we see a major dip in the stock market, I think the sentiment and the disposition we see now, because again, they're very much so like, hey, it's not going to be, I'm getting there, making it seem as if, it's not going to be that bad. If the switch flips on tomorrow, we're going to see a whole new personality, whole new attitude. What are your thoughts?
Yeah,
because it's like they're trying to be overly calm.
Well, I mean, but look at the clip. Where'd you get it from? You got it from Fox News, which is trying to minimize this whole thing. Because the first person was talking about, oh, we just need to, he actually agrees that we don't need to be putting tariffs on the whole world, and we need to be putting tariffs on China because China can't survive that type of, their economy won't survive. I'm like, China has probably as big as an economy as the United States. Like, what are you talking about? China makes everything. It's like we get stuff from China. How do you feel that they're not going to survive? Matter of fact, they're probably the only country that will probably survive this. Now, don't get me wrong, China will get hit hard as well in the depression. But at the same time, I feel they're going to recover much more sooner than we will.
Yep, and that's the thing. People think that when we talk about recession and depression, well, the U.S. is going to feel it. I'm like, this is going to be a global ripple. This is not just going to happen within, because we're so closely connected through globalization. And like you said, you brought up a great point. Was it China back in the 80s when they were getting ready with was it Richard Nixon? They were getting ready to go into bankruptcy. And because of the mass exodus or push for manufacturing to go outside of the country, that pretty much saved them. So because they're dependent upon that type of money coming into their network and into their to their labor market, if by any chance there is a decline, because you got to realize, even though, and this is what I think, you tell me what your thoughts are, even though the items are being outsourced to China and all these other countries, the U.S. is one of the biggest consumers. So the moment we have to jack up these prices and we're unable to buy and purchase items, it's going to be a bottleneck within the worldwide system as far as their economy. What are your thoughts?
Well, we're not one of the biggest consumers. We are the biggest consumers in the world. I mean, the guy on this video said what 70%, 70% consumer based economy. So, no, I mean, with everything that's going to be going up, and even American made products, like, we have car manufacturers that are here, but a lot of those parts are imported.
Yep.
Like half the car parts are imported. So technically, American cars aren't even American cars because of the fact that a lot of the stuff is imported. When you're talking about the parts, when you're talking about the materials, because that's the one thing. That's the one thing about it. We get a lot of rare materials from somewhere else.
Correct.
I just saw on the news this morning that British car manufacturers that make I think it's Jaguar and Range Rover, they're going to stop exporting to the United States because of the tariffs. So good luck, like if you like Jaguars, you better get one now.
But the crazy thing is, if you stop exporting, and we're one of the biggest consumers of Jaguars, and let's say we're going to stop sending you parts, where are you going to get that? Where are you going to get that work from? Where are you going to get that money from? Because if we're not purchasing parts, who else is going to purchase parts in the large quantity that we do purchase parts? You get what I'm saying? So it's like spite your nose. What is it? Cut off your nose to spite your face.
Spite your face. Yep.
And that's the situation. Like, you're fighting with us. And I'm going to be honest. I think the sensible thing would be just to absorb the cost. And then let's just continue on with the manufacturing. But in your head, you think, well, I'm going to just cut off all consumption. I'm not shipping another part. Okay, so it's going to get worse then. And it's going to get, and I think that's why I think the recession that could turn into a depression can ultimately be, it's going to be a global thing. Because the thing is, this is how close I think we are to a depression. If we see a decline the rest of this week, next week it's going to be a conversation of depression and not recession. Because next week we'll already be in a recession. This week, rather this week, because today is Sunday. This week if we don't see the numbers, it's going to be a recession. Next week we'll be talking about Saturday or Sunday depression.
Yeah, and when you think about when you think about what you were saying about bringing back manufacturing, and I just told you, the only way you bring manufacturing is through government policy that funds it.
Yep.
Tariffs are not going to do it. Tariffs are not going to magically make industry appear. And so, in my perspective, this tariff thing is not about bringing back industry. It's about a big heist for, like I said, Trump's billionaires. Look at his appointments. 13 billionaires in his cabinet. 13 billionaires in his cabinet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that shows you what he thinks about working class people.
He really doesn't think anything about it. Let's see.
I hear you. By the way, today, the senator of Iowa and the senator of Washington are doing a bipartisan bill to possibly take away some of the powers.
Take control back, and Congress really has not been muscular on any of these issues, even though they had the power to be, and probably should have been a long time ago. Stephen Robert, thank you very much. Good to have you here.
Click here to.
I'm not going to keep you long because I know you have to get up as well and go to work, and just like myself. If we see a dip on Monday, I'm going online at 6 o'clock. If you're game, you are welcome to come on. And I'll check with the rest of the Sunday Seminary crew. But yeah, tomorrow's going to be interesting. I'll say that much. Tomorrow's going to be the day everybody needs to cut on their television and watch and pay attention to what's going on. Some people are like, oh, I don't watch the news. Watch it tomorrow, please, because tomorrow is going to be the indicator of how this entire week is going to look.
So what do you feel is kind of like some of the protective measures that we can do if we go into this either recession or depression?
Are you talking about as a Black community or just a citizen or American?
I would start with the Black community first.
I think we have to go back into where we operate as silos and not necessarily. I think segregation is the best conversation we need to have. And we need to figure out how. I actually have a group and I can pull you in. We just started this group a couple of weeks ago, and I was going to talk to the seminary crew about it. And it's called Project Goshen, and it helps us to sustain as a community and come together as a network to figure out, what are we going to do if the food market shuts down? We need to start creating gardening and food wellness within our own community and in our own area. What do you do if we have a situation where the economy shuts down and we have no access to the hospitals like we used to? How to sustain as a community? Because you know what? That's the only way we can be able to sustain. I'll send you the link to the meetings we actually just started if you're interested.
Okay. Yeah. Send me the link. I'd be interested in it. So, I mean, that's the thing that we probably have to prepare for. We have to kind of prepare for, like we've been talking about this depression that might be happening. And, I've already seen people losing jobs. A friend of mine's wife, she works for the government, and even though she didn't get laid off, see, what's been happening is some of these departments that Trump can't totally eviscerate. What they're doing is that they're laying off a lot of the people in those departments, and the remaining people that are there, they basically make them pick up the work without any extra pay. And they have to basically pick that up. So some people are getting frustrated by this and actually leaving their jobs voluntarily and going to the private sector. So a lot of these layoffs for the government, from government employees, is basically a windfall for the private sector, because many of these people who either get laid off or get frustrated because of the fact that they're taking up all this work is they're going to the private sector. And now the private sector is getting this influx of, skilled laborers that came from the government. So another thing Trump is doing for his, billionaire friends is,
and even the private sector is shaky right now. But given their billionaires, you said, I'm sorry, complete that thought. I'm sorry.
Well, also too, you got to understand a lot of these companies rely on the market, and we've just been talking about the market because they're publicly owned. So, unfortunately, yeah, some of them are going to take, some of them are going to they're going to take a hit if, like you said, if this economy goes upside down. But in the end, many of the major companies, they'll probably be okay. They may take a small hit, but it's not going to be as big because what the administration is going to do is they're going to probably do something like what Obama did in 2008 and give them $700 billion or something to infuse the economy or something.
But do we even have $700 billion? That's the question.
Look, I didn't think that we had $300 billion to fund Ukraine.
We didn't. I think we're in a catch right now. We done sent so much money out to support that now we're getting ready to go. Monday, this week is going to be interesting. I'll say that much. We got distracted. I think yesterday's event was a distraction to the looming nightmare that's coming to them on Monday. Because when you look at yesterday, it was just a festival. It wasn't a protest. That was a festival. I looked at that and I said,
I like that. It was a festival.
That's all it was. I protest. I know people are laying in the middle of the street, removing the move, fighting the police, getting maced. Where are the dogs? Where are the water hoses? Where I ain't seen none of that. That's all I saw was police officers directing traffic. And I said, that's like a concert. And that's all they had was a horrible concert.
Mm-hmm.
Horrible concert.
I do agree with you on that one.
I was like, this was utter waste of time. But it distracted us from what was coming. You notice that Monday, right before the protest on the Friday before that Friday, and the protest happened on that Saturday, is when we started seeing the tank of the economy. And I said, everybody's talking about this protest. If we tank this week, they're going to be standing in the middle of the street fighting, because you're going to have a situation where if these companies start tanking, guess what? You're going to start seeing layoffs. You're going to start seeing people lose things. And people don't realize depression is not good. Depression means companies are laying people off. The employment rate skyrockets. The employment rate is a driver to a lot of these economic upheavals. And I think we're almost there from an unemployment rate perspective, but it's going to be more unemployment because these companies won't be able to sustain them.
Yeah, but the unemployment rate is very deceptive because of the fact that yes, people are, they're basically some people who just fall off the statistics because of the fact that they may not be employed, but they never collect unemployment because some people, they get businesses, and people just kind of, like I said, they may not have a job and they don't file for unemployment. So, but I think also too, when you think about the employment rate, many Americans don't make, in those statistics, they don't really make a living wage. Like I could be employed making $15 an hour, but as well as I do, living in Chicago or the Chicagoland area with a child that is about to go to college, like $15 an hour ain't gonna cut it. That's not gonna cut it.
These normal salaries ain't cutting it no more.
You know what? Look, 6 figures ain't even cutting it.
Man, 6 figures will make you mad because you'll be like, "What am I doing?
Yeah,
what am I working for?"
Like it's almost like with the economy that we have right now, and especially like I said in the Chicagoland area, it's like 6 figures is like just enough to live.
Just enough. That's key word.
Just enough to live.
Just enough. Because if you ain't in the 2s and the 3s of the 6 figures, you just barely make it. You're making it. And
yeah, exactly.
You ain't making $200,000 a year. You You're hanging on by a thread because
Yeah,
cost of living is high.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, you're right. It's like the 206 figures. That's just enough to live comfortably.
Yep. So let's do this. If you up for it tomorrow, I'll probably go ahead and put a link out there and create one. We can talk about tomorrow around 8:00. I know you got class tomorrow. Or are you good?
No. Let me see. I don't think I got anything tomorrow, but no, I should be.
Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens at the close of the market, and see, because I want to see how these people. Let's look at how they're reacting today. Because all the videos that I showed today were today. They're very calm. Let's see if their sentiment changes on tomorrow.
Okay, cool.
So cool. All right. Well, you got any closing remarks before we close up?
No, I'm just the thing is that let's all keep our heads level in this situation. Try not to panic. We can get through this. Yep. But I also think this is a time for more collaboration with family, friends. We got to start coming together, as community, if we're going to survive this. And I think this time should bring us a lot closer together. So everybody, just keep a level head, and tough times are coming, but like I said, just keep a level head.
Yep, same here. Well, everybody, thank y'all so much for joining me. I will be online tomorrow. I will say this much. I'm like Gardis, don't be afraid. Be aware. Where there was a time that you said, I don't watch the news because it's fake news. Today is the day to start. And just pay attention, because you don't have investments in the stock market. If it crashes, it's still going to impact you. I'm not really worried, because I know God is protecting us in every sense of the word, but he says watch as well as pray. So watch and pay attention so you can be prepared for what's to come. So I would say, if you don't watch CNN tomorrow, cut it on. If you don't watch what's the market money news that I watch? I can't remember.
You got Bloomberg, and
I watch Bloomberg.
MSNBC Business.
MSNBC Business. It's pretty good. So kind of keep your eyes on that and just pay attention. And we'll see what this week looks like. All right, y'all. Have a good one. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Gardis, for joining us, and we'll see y'all tomorrow.
All different type of information every week. Let me speak. If you subscribe, we're going deep. Love talk, Sister E. God's work, Sister E. Charity, Sister